There is a man who once compared a tax increase to the Nazi invasion of Poland. That same man is the owner of the building you are living. There is a building at 345 Park Avenue in Midtown Manhattan, 52 floors, glass and stone, nothing unusual from the outside. But if you dig a bit further and try to trace who owns the mortgage on 8 Spruce Street, the Frank Gehry Tower downtown, the 11,254 apartments of Stuyvesant Town, or retail buildings across Soho on Crosby Street, Green Street, Broadway, a 50-story Midtown office tower on Avenue of the Americas. All of these highly valued properties in the heart of New York, and the owner leads back here. This is Blackstone, the company that is quietly buying New York. And the man who built it, the man who sits at the top of it, is someone most people in this city have never heard of. His name is Stephen Schwarzman, and this is the audit of Vestagental on Stephen Schwarzman. The net worth of Stephen Schwarzman is $43 billion. Annual earnings in 2025 alone is $1.24 billion. Assets under management across his firm is $1.2 trillion. But if you look for his official salary, you will find out only $350,000 a year. So the question is, where does the other $1.24 billion come from? That answer lies inside a single word, a word buried deep in the tax code that has survived every president who tried to kill it. In this audit, we will get to that word. But first, let's look at the story of this man, which started with hunger as a boy, not with money. Let's find out, how does a boy who sold handkerchiefs for 10 cents an hour in a Philadelphia linen shop end up owning pieces of New York that generations of families have lived in for decades? Joseph Schwarzman, the father of Stephen Schwarzman, built a decent life from a linen shop in Pennsylvania. He inherited it from his own father. He poured his life into it. His son Stephen worked there from childhood. 10 cents an hour, handkerchiefs, curtains, packing boxes. One day, Stephen came to his father with a plan. The shop was working. Why not expand? Chicago, New York, a chain. His father refused. He had what he had. That was enough. Schwarzman could never understand the reason. Later on, he said in his own word,
Do something very consequential. Do something that's quite large, if you can, that's unique. Because if you operate in that kind of space, when you're successful, it's a huge impact. The prospect of success enables you to recruit people who want to be part of that. And those type of large opportunities are pretty easily described. And so not everybody likes to operate at scale. Some people like to do small things because it is meaningful for them emotionally. And so occasionally you get a disagreement on that, but those are life choices rather than commercial choices.
His father chose the shop. Stephen chose everything else. Yale, Harvard Business School, then Wall Street, not because he was lucky, because he was relentless. At his first Wall Street job interview, he found out a Yale classmate earned $10,000 a year. He asked for more. They gave it to him. At Lehman Brothers, senior partners screamed at him over a single typo on page 56 of a 68-page report. One partner walked into his first board meeting and shouted directly at him,
"Who are you and why aren't you sitting up straight?"
Schwarzman absorbed all of it, then surpassed every single one of them. By 31, he was a partner at Lehman Brothers, one of the youngest in the firm's history. Then he made the $500 million Tropicana merger, executed almost entirely all by himself, using research gathered on a single flight. This deal, that is one of the most famous deals in the world economy, nearly got him fired, but he remained faithful unto his judgment, and the deal that seemed rubbish to everyone else made him $500 million. In 1985, after Lehman collapsed into internal chaos, Schwarzman walked out with his closest ally, a former CEO named Pete Peterson, and started something new. They called it Blackstone, 2 men, $400,000 between them, and an ambition that most of Wall Street called delusional. They were right about the ambition, wrong about the outcome. Look at Blackstone now. The early years of Blackstone were humbling. They bought a full-page ad in the New York Times. They wrote letters to every contact accumulated across 3 decades, and they waited. The first chapter of any financial empire is rejection, which nobody will tell you. Schwarzman described going out to raise their first private equity fund as a direct quote.
We went to our top 18 prospects. Everyone said no, except Metropolitan Life and New York Life. One said, I'll give you 50 million. The other one said, I'll give you 25. But I don't want to be, sort of a big part of the thing. So you have to raise at least $500 million or else our commitments are worthless. And we'd already gone to everybody we knew who was the best targets. And I sort of looked at that and I went, OMG, we are going to fail.
6 months of pitching. Not a single dollar committed. Then, at a lunch in New Jersey, the chief investment officer of Prudential Life, the most credible institutional investor in the country at that time, listened from his own word.
We just met one more company. It was called Prudential Life Insurance Company, which was the number one financier in those days. He was having a tuna and white bread cut across. And I'm busy pitching this private equity fund, and you can share part of our advisory profits as a merchant bank. And he keeps chewing it. Adam's apple's going up and down, and I keep doing my thing. Finishes the first half of the sandwich, gets through the other half, halfway. He looks over at me and he says, "I think that's a good idea. Put me down for 100.
After that, the money followed. It always follows the first credible yes. Blackstone raised $635 million for its first fund. The third largest private equity fund ever raised at that time. The machine was running. Private equity, in simple terms, is this. You find a company that is underperforming, you buy a controlling stake using your own money and borrowed money, you restructure it, you cut the costs, grow revenues, then sell it for more than you paid. Investors earn returns. Blackstone keeps 20% of the gains. That 20% is called carried interest. Remember that word, carried interest? It is the most important word in this entire audit. But here is what the early investors did not fully understand. The machine Schwarzman was building was not just designed to generate profit. It was designed to be a vacuum, one that would eventually pull liquidity, housing, and political power toward a single address on Park Avenue. By the 2000s, Blackstone had moved into real estate in a way that had never been done before. Not just office towers, not just commercial assets, homes, apartment blocks, entire residential communities that families had lived in for generations. In 2015, Blackstone acquired Stuyvesant Town, 110 buildings, 11,254 apartments for $5.46 billion, the largest residential real estate deal in American history at that time. In 2022, they purchased the Frank Gehry Tower at 8 Spruce Street for $930 million. Then in 2024, 4 retail buildings across Soho for $200 million, the largest Manhattan retail deal by an investor in over 3 years. In 2025, a 46% stake in 1345 Avenue of the Americas, a 50-story midtown office tower, as part of a $1.4 billion transaction. Now here is the detail that changes everything. Between 2022 and 2024, the commercial real estate market was in crisis. Interest rates were rising, values were collapsing, institutional investors across Wall Street were fleeing the sector, banks were writing down losses, office buildings in major cities were being handed back to lenders. While everyone else was running for the exit, Blackstone was buying. That is not accidental, that is the strategy. When markets panic, those with access to unlimited capital, they do stop buying, they acquire, and when prices recover, the gains are extraordinary. The families who lost those apartments during the 2008 crisis, the pension funds that sold at the bottom, the cities that could not afford to hold, they sold all these to Blackstone and funded the next decade of Blackstones. This is not investing, this is architecture. The architecture of a system built to transfer wealth upward even during crisis. Now we come to the dark chapter of Blackstone. To understand all in one word, you need to understand BREIT. BREIT is the Blackstone Real Estate Income Trust. It's the machine Blackstone used to pull in money from thousands of individual investors, institutions, pension funds, university endowments, private wealth managers, ordinary retail investors who gave them money on stable returns from real estate. Here is how Blackstone sold this machine to people. Put your money in, earn steady returns. Real estate is safe. Blackstone manages everything, you just collect. What was buried in the small print was this. You get into investing at your will, but you get out at the will of Blackstone. Think of BREIT like a vault. You deposit your money. The vault grows. The returns look strong. Then the market turns and you want your savings back. You walk to the vault door. You pull the handle. It does not move. Blackstone had written into the structure that withdrawals were capped at 5% of the fund's total value per quarter. When too many people asked for their money at once, the gate came down. In November 2022, withdrawal requests exceeded that cap. The fund had nearly $145 billion in total assets. Blackstone allowed investors to withdraw only $1.3 billion, 43% of what was requested. By January 2023, requests hit $5.3 billion in a single month. Blackstone returned $1.4 billion of it. In March 2023, investors asked for $4.5 billion. Blackstone returned 15%. Was it legal? Yes, the terms were in the prospectus. But a Georgetown University professor who teaches a master's course on real estate investment trusts said at the time, "How come all the data sources are telling us the value of assets have gone down, but REIT continues to post values above where they were a year ago?" That question has yet to be answered, and it's giving investors heartburn. And it was not just investors raising questions. In 2019, United Nations housing experts sent Schwarzman a formal letter. International investigators accused Blackstone of practices that had deleterious effects on the right to housing for millions of people globally.
Schwarzman did not respond publicly. When you own this much, you do not have to answer.
Now we come to the part that makes everything else possible, because this is not just a story about money making. It is a story about how money buys the rules. After the 2016 election, Schwarzman helped assemble the most powerful CEO advisory group in America, Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan, Bob Iger of Disney, the heads of General Motors and Boeing, and Schwarzman was named as the chairman. It was called the President's Strategic and Policy Forum. That same year, the administration was negotiating a major tax overhaul. One senator proposed closing the carried interest loophole, the tax structure that allows private equity managers to pay capital gains rates on their earnings instead of standard income tax rates. This proposal was killed by Blackstone.
Here is what that loophole actually costs. If you are a doctor, a pilot, or a successful small business owner, the government takes 37% of your top earnings. That is the standard. But for Schwarzman, the rules are different. Because of the carried interest loophole, his rate drops to just 20% instead of 37%. This difference of 17% might sound small until you apply it on $1.2 billion, which is his yearly earning. That single loophole saved him $204 million in taxes in just 1 year, which he has been doing for ages now. To put that in perspective, with $204 million, you can buy the Newport mansion 7 times. The money that should have been in public treasury as taxes is in his vault. Obama tried to close it.
But after a huge crisis, the top 25 hedge fund managers took home $1 billion in income that year. $1 billion. That's the average for the top 25.
And yet Forbes magazine puts on their cover a story saying he has an anti-colonial attitude, or Steve Schwarzman, a big figure on Wall Street, says their approach to the financial regulation and taxation is like Hitler invading Poland. Where does that come from?
He later apologized for the comment, but this tax loophole survived.
In 2020, Schwarzman donated $3 million to a aligned super PAC, $20 million to the Senate Leadership Fund, a total of $27 million in political donations in a single election cycle. He donated to the system, and the system made sure that the tax loophole machine stays intact and untouched. Not only that the New York Public Library on 42nd Street and 5th Avenue, the one every New Yorker walks past, was renamed, and it was not named after a president, a general, or a scientist. It was renamed as the Stephen S. Schwarzman Building. Also, he has his name on institutions like the MIT Schwarzman College of Computing, the Oxford's Schwarzman Center for the Humanities, the Schwarzman Scholars Program at Tsinghua University in Beijing. His name is carved into the institutions that shape what the next generation believes, studies, and builds. This is not happening by accident. This is happening by careful system design.
So what is the result of all these? Blackstone now manages $1.2 trillion in assets. Schwarzman took home $1.24 billion in 2025, which is a record for any CEO on earth. His salary is just $350,000. Everything else comes from the system he built, the loopholes he defended, and the political access he purchased across 4 decades.
When journalists pressed him on the wealth, the power, the reach, this is what he said.
I don't feel like a wealthy person. Other people think of me as a wealthy person, but don't.
He said that from a duplex apartment at 740 Park Avenue, the former home of John D. Rockefeller, JRB. He also owns a country estate in Wiltshire, England, a mansion in Newport, Rhode Island, purchased for $27 million, and the largest real estate fund on earth. The question is not whether Stephen Schwarzman is brilliant. He clearly is. The question is, at what expense he came to this point of success. The UN documented it. Congressional hearings recorded it. The Stuyvesant Town Court ruling confirmed it. When one institution acquires 11,000 apartments in a single deal, when they lock the exit doors on a $145 billion fund, ordinary people lose access to their savings, lose access to their homes, all of which belongs to him.
Was this genius or recklessness with other people's homes and savings? You decide.